Hi, I'm Rosemary Bauman, and I am the head of the Forest Stewards of Beargrass Creek State Nature Preserve. And we just generally go around and do what I call forest gardening, which is helping everything stay happy. And we do trail work, yes. So, through the gates we go. A tiny bit of reforestation. These are trees that were provided by a grant from MSD. I think there were probably about 200 total. There's 2 sites. This is one of the sites. There are probably about 10 different species of native trees and shrubs in this area, about 5 different species. And I'm proud because I agitated and insisted that this should be an area of reforestation, not parkland. Being allowed to just grow, so to speak. Our main job is going to be to keep invasive plants from taking it over. So it's exciting. It'll be fun to watch. A big part of it that of the process in here has been reshaping the landscape itself to be able to feel better. It's a popular spot for our young campers and hikers. You can see someone strung a rope over it. But this is the butt end of a giant black locust tree. I'm pretty sure you go way down there. Black locust is really decay resistant wood. That's why it's used as a fence post. So this is going to be for a long time. It's not going anywhere.
And when a tree falls in a forest, you know, it really adds a lot to the wildlife, right?
It's immeasurable. Just look at all the different spaces and habitats that are, you know, above, below, inside, outside, you name it. And as it decays, you get this really rich material that filters out from below it and kind of makes its way down the slope. So it's kind of just constantly feeding just little bits at a time, just like the way you want it. The trail used to go down through here, and now it goes over here. And let's walk down here for just a sec. I can give you an example of the kind of healing that's trying to take place here. This is getting to be a real mess. Now, as we stand in this row, first of all, I just want to point out that around us, these are all spice bushes that were planted. The largest ones in here were part of an Eagle Scout project. They're all throughout. The soils and the climate in here are so supremely adapted to this plant. This is ideal habitat. So the reason we had to use the trail should be obvious. This has been trying to happen for about 10 years.
Really?
Yeah. And after we moved the trail, we just finally let it happen. I just dug a channel. I said, okay, come over here. It was right in here somewhere. I just dug it out and I said, come on in, Free. Some more chasmanthium. Put down, and let me just go a little ways down here. Only 1 year ago, people were still walking in this, if you can believe it. What can happen to a trail that's not designed properly?
Right.
It never really belonged in this place because it was situated such that water would eventually find this low spot and channel into it. But this area will heal itself over time, and it's finally become what it wanted to be all along.
This is a pretty big black walnut, huh?
It is a really big black walnut, yeah. And they are some of the biggest trees we have in here.
Really?
Black walnuts, hackberries, and a very small handful of large oaks. We'll walk through an area, and hickory, yeah. So there are down there some really large trees. One of the plants that I've been enjoying moving into drainages lately is stinging nettle. I don't know if anybody would think of actually planting stinging nettles anywhere, but I would. I know it sounds kind of devious and nasty, but
it's a native plant.
It's a native plant, yeah. This is actually a really nicely attractive view, but I am in the process of trying to get rid of it. Oh dear, what am I doing? Well, one of the things I'm doing is planting spice bush all over the place. You can see these little flags. ultimately, there's no niche that's going to go unfilled. This is a forest environment. It will grow up to something. So at this point, we have an almost absent shrub layer in most places, almost absent, which means we're either going to get the bush honeysuckle or the privet back from somewhere, or we're going to try our best to get the native plants to get in there and fill that niche fast.
So it's not just good enough to just cut out the honeysuckle without putting something back.
And that's the big lesson that I've learned. And I think in the beginning we all thought that our job was to go out and kill that honeysuckle, and then we go home, yay, we did so great. And then 5 years later you come back and you go, oh, restoration is not, invasive plant removal is not restoration. It's not forest restoration. It's the beginning of the healing, not the end. Another re-engineered drainage. I remember this one fondly because it was the first one. It has succeeded. It's turned another one of these drainages that just scoured into a meandering stream, basically. You can see how much organic matter has been thrown in. This goes all the way up. This is one of the trail type challenges. We're getting seepage from above.
And what is seepage exactly?
Seepage would be where at some point, for whatever reason, water's being channeled towards this area.
Gotcha.
And you may even have, the thing that I've noticed that you sometimes have is you have limestone underground, which stops the water from going down. I would think a nice healthy layer of river oats right in here would help, but we may have to place these little guys in there too, just to give people, because having feet going through this all the time isn't actually helping it. This is your Virginia wild rye. This is called a cool season grass. There's warm season and cool season. Mostly what we have in here are cool season. That's the river oats and this one. So by dropping their seed through the later part of the summer, you're looking at a planting season. Like if you wanted to go out and plant, you would do it this fall, and your plants would actually start growing in late fall, early winter, and overwinter, and then do a huge growth spurt in early spring while it's still cool.
Because they've already established the root system.
It's already established, and they like to do their main growth period when it's cool. In the past, the bridge that would sit here, it was actually a little further down, I think. It was washed off several times.
Washed
by
off?
The force of water coming down this
Now,
drainage.
how heavy is one of those bridges?
Pretty heavy. Yeah. But if you had seen the bridge, I actually wasn't here at those moments when it washed off, but seeing the aftermath, it's pretty astounding. So I've been trying to tame this drainage for a while, and I think it's working because I don't see moving water right now. I see standing water. And there's a lot of stuff planted in here, particularly, there's a sycamore tree right over here, and there are several, probably about 10 silky dogwoods, which are unfortunately being defoliated right now. So we'll see what happens with those. But if they don't prove to be the perfect thing, then buttonbush probably will, which is right here, buttonbush. So I have buttonbush to put in there. These are what you call true wetland plants. They can sit in water and be happy, whereas other things will just,
even if it's completely waterlogged. Wow.
Going on to Fraser Road right now, the mysterious pioneer road that can still be found. This is actually, I believe it is a historic roadway. Wow. We're going up onto the berm right now, and you can see, we'll see evidence along the way that this is definitely a constructed path and that it was done so quite a while back. Part of the evidence we'll see everywhere are bricks and other building debris that was placed in here. And the debris that was placed in there appears to be somewhat historic. I mean, it wasn't something, you know, they didn't tear down a Kmart and throw it in here
Right.
last year. It's old stuff. So, and also just the scope of this. Now, I know Conrad believes this might have been done with slave labor, and I have no idea. I'm not going to, you know, venture a guess. He's more of a local historian, but looking at the scale of the work, I'm just going to say whoever had to do it, it was one hell of a lot of work, because you can see where the floodplain is. We are looking at this preliminary, I don't know, 5 to 8 feet above the floodplain. This is all built up. It's sandy as well. You can see that the type of soil that's in here had to have been brought from somewhere else.
So they didn't just dig a hole somewhere in this forest and move the soil to here.
This is sand. This is like what you'd find from the river. Oh. I mean, that's the only place I can think of nearby where you're going to find this sandy material.
Yeah.
So they brought this in here somehow. I have no idea how. It was a major undertaking. There used to be a bridge that I can recall, actually, from my teens down across Beargrass Creek.
Really?
Yeah, it was actually mostly dismantled at that time, but being a teenager, I would walk across it on the metal beams.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
on for dear life.
we were all teenagers.
So if one knew to dig, they could probably find all kinds of mostly broken. This looks like it was incinerated or burnt.
Wow.
It's a bit of glass. There's slate, which is what was used as roofing material. It almost looks as though it's the remains of a home or something. Really interesting.
Yeah.
So, all kinds of old-time buildings. Allow whatever type of vehicle to be used.
Right.
Got across here.
And
Yeah, a lot of bricks surfacing right here.
what I'm noticing is that some of the largest trees I've seen are on either side of the road.
Yes. You can see there's standing water around here. Again, this is very atypical for this time of year. Usually only in wintertime up into early spring do you have this much standing water. Now, I think at the time that they were using this for agriculture, they had drainage systems.
Mm-hmm.
They had dug and they probably just filled in. And also, well, the other reason is this was pre-channelization. If you guys, we can take an extra 10 minutes, I'm going to show you what the creek looks like. So, a number of years ago, this has probably been 20 plus years ago, this property over here was owned by Caritas. And you probably know about I think it's the federal law about wetlands. Like if you destroy wetlands, you've got to mitigate. So they wanted to build railroad, apparently, which is the best I know about it. And in the process, they had to destroy some acreage of wetlands. So they owned this. So they said, okay, here's what we'll do.
Right.
We thought that it had gone to the Louisville Zoo, but as we found out later, it's actually the city, which is almost the same thing. But the city owns this now. Caritas deeded it to them in return for the destruction of the wetlands. Now, you might say, wow, that's so awesome. They gave up whatever, 17 acres. Of course, what could they do with it?
It was wasteland, right?
Until the law came along, which allowed them to go, woo-hoo! Now we can build firewood. So, yeah. Every ash tree of this size in our forest is dead or dying. That is to say, every big one. The smaller ones are okay because of the nature of the infestation is that the emerald ash borer burrows under the cambium, and small trees, I think, simply don't have a very developed cambium. So they're okay until they get big. And who knows, it may run its course. Sometimes, once every tree in an area has been killed by the insect, it loses its habitat.
It loses the food supply,
it loses
right?
the food supply. So it will dwindle down. We're getting into the part of the forest where things are a little more raw. You can still see there's a lot of privet out here. Oh my gosh, I've never seen a trail like this. There's a famous Kentucky botanist named Julian Campbell who believes that gray dogwood used to be everywhere, all over the place, which is interesting because it's become, nuthatch, white-breasted nuthatch, walking as they do, gleaning, picking, gleaning. One of our classic forest birds. Loves it. Oh, got something. Whoa! Whoa! I don't know what that was.
You got that, Richard?
Good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You are good. The older I get, I have a hard time finding those things. So one of the reasons dogwoods, as I mentioned before, shrub dogwoods are having a hard time in here. They're getting hit. They're getting the double whammy from deer. The little ones get browsed like insanely. Gray dogwood is a nice, wonderful, small tree, wetland plant. And it expands clonally just as pawpaw does. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the protections that pawpaw has from deer. So they will browse all the young ones that come up around us. And then the bucks, for some perverse reason, the bucks love to rub them. So it's very rare to find one that hasn't been heavily rubbed, as this one has, to the point of death often. I'm looking at the ground layer to see what's happening in here. Wow, this is kind of interesting. That is either spice bush or persimmon. Or maybe it's pawpaw. I'm not sure. So if I was really going to try to do something decent here, what I'd probably do is cut down all the invasives around here and pile them all up around here so the deer couldn't get to this anymore. I'm not going to do that today. I've done it a lot. All right. But that would be my recipe for improvement right here. Yeah. You know, this is just making me feel terrible, Jody, because I'm looking in here at all this crap. We've got porcelain dairy up the wazoo, so, you know, I'm just going to do a little bit. So I put on my, these are my sunglasses. I usually have on safety glasses. So you get to see what I do. I spend a lot of my time. I used to do it with loppers when they were bigger, but now I do it with head shears, which can be a little more challenging.
Do you see turtles at all in this tree? Oh,
you
yes?
do. Oh, there it goes again. It had dipped in. There's actually a surprising amount of life in here that can, I don't know, I think the biggest challenge is just the kind of scouring storms that come through here. I don't know what the turtles do, but they must do something, and the fish, you know, because you'd just be swept away.
Right.
In fact, right near this site, this was a few years back, I was walking along here and I heard a really odd clunk. And I was like, oh, a rock fell. And I looked, and it was a female snapping turtle who had fallen off the cliff. And what the hell was she doing up on the cliff? Well, I know what she was doing. She went up there to lay her eggs. Wow. Yeah, now how, you know, it's just like the salmon going upstream. When you've got to do it, you've got to do it. So she somehow got up there, and maybe just falling off was the easiest way back down. Poor thing. I mean, I think she was okay. I'm not going to make light of her plight. But yes, snappers, map turtles used to be soft shells. I haven't seen them lately, but I have seen soft shells in here. Your typical, you know, urban dirty stream fish like sunfish and carp and goldfish. I've seen big ones.
Goldfish?
Yes, I've seen. Well, goldfish are carp.
Right,
Carp,
right.
yeah.
I'm telling you, this is awesome.
Well, now this is a popular fishing hole too.
Oh, right here.
Oh yeah.
Woo!
Shows just spoiled lunch for somebody.
That was
sorry
awesome.
about that. Well, you can see why it was here because Wood Creek drains into there and there's a nice shallow catchment. There's probably fish in there. I'm trying to think. I went down there. I was looking for some native plants that I could rehome because I knew the whole thing was going to be level. And I found a box turtle, and then I found another one, and then the neighbors told me there were lots of box turtles, the ones that lived back there. And they were right. We found 14 box turtles, which would have been dead turtles.
Right.
And the challenge, I would have liked to put them over here, but the challenge was that there was a big 40-foot pit over there at that time, full of equipment. And box turtles are known for returning to their homes.
Mm-hmm.
They don't just like sit down and say, "Oh, we're here," you know. So they lived in my backyard for a couple years, and then my husband had enough. Actually, we were getting rats because I was putting their food out there all the time. So it wasn't real popular having them in the backyard. At the current time, they're living in a enclosure with another man who wanted to breed them, but I think they may eventually get rehomed, some of them, because the box turtle study we're doing right now, the guy that's doing it, Dr. Omar Atun, puts transmitters in turtles, so it's possible we could, if the state will give us permission, we could send some of them back and transmit this to the zoo. They can't get back in there because now there's chain link. So, but will they try? What will they do? Will they stay or go? Yeah. Yeah, they have to talk to a tree, but I don't think it's a tree stop. Now, I won't say it's useless because I'm looking at a lot of pollinators, okay? So I cannot in all honesty say it's useless. I see honeybees and a variety of other pollinators nectaring on the forsythia. Now, that's not to say that it hasn't taken the place of all the other native plants that could have been providing nectar here. But, you know, this is what we got. Wow, white snake growing out of a bag of potting soil. It's like, yeah, nice. This is prime wildlife viewing here, and I killed most of the porcelain dairy with foliar spraying, although I see there's still some, and planted young trees. So really the goal here is to close this gap.
Right.
Sooner or later, and not allow it to revert to a porcelain dairy nightmare like it's trying to do. So just to give you some idea of the growth rate, about let's say 2 weeks ago, I was down here and I hand pulled every big vine. So this is about a 2-week-old vine. Not all trees make it. Occasionally we lose one. This black willow did not make it. A lot of these are going up through this restoration area. This has actually been a site that we've probably worked harder on than any site I can think of. Once porcelain dairy gets onto a site and is on a site for as much as 5 to 10 years, it forms this really, really dense underground root system, which is almost impossible to kill. So the challenge of the last several years has been being out here with every volunteer that you can get to do it. Yeah, you see it? It's still there, right? And in the wintertime, having them pretty much try to pull up and cut and treat as many vines as they can find in winter, and then in summertime, foliar spray, foliar spray, foliar spray. Huh, Beargrass on, that's kind of uncommon to see it on ironweed. Yeah, this is an unprotected sycamore that was planted as a bare root, but I've seen very little browse, so sycamores generally do pretty well. All right, so we're going to head back into the forest. It's pretty hot out here. We couldn't plant this area up because we discovered we're right on a limestone plate. Once we scraped off all the winter creeper, we were like, oh, there's strawberries there. How about that? Likely. Some of your, oh, this is a plant I really like. I'd actually like to move it somewhere because that's called Great Blue Lobelia. Wonderful wetland plant. So if I get out my handy dandy shovel sometime, I'd have to take the whole clump actually, but put it in a wetland area where it's a little more protected and the deer won't chow it. Really nice native plant that a lot of people don't know about that could easily grow in anybody's wet place. It's called jump seed. Has beautiful white plumes of flowers later in the season. So I love seeing a big stand of it. Wow, black cherry bit the dust here. You can see it just like split off of the main tree. In fact, yeah, there's hardly any of the main tree left, it looks like. That way. So here this is actually moving toward Beargrass Creek. We're still empty into Beargrass Creek, somewhere back there where we were. It will go through one of the little, well, that's a long story, but it will jump into the creek. I'm just not used to these little waterways holding water.
Yeah, the intermittent streams aren't really intermittent.
No, they've been continuous since last fall, really. I can't think there's been a time that they haven't been running. Now you might ask yourself, with all this water, how come we don't have more frogs? As far as I know, we have one permanent resident, which is the tree frog, which you can see all over urban Louisville, but more so in here. But I think frogs were eradicated at a time when there was a lot of agriculture and drainage in here, and since then it's like, well, where are you going to find frogs in Metro Louisville? So I don't think they've been able to recolonize, even though I think if I had about 100 frogs in a bucket, probably a fair number of them would make it. Right. You know, like spring peepers or something. I think the habitat is here now, but the isolation, I think, is probably the issue now. Yeah, we're going to go a slightly different way to see what the forest looked like a while back. If I can.
Are we going to section 4?
We're going to section 4.
Oh man.
Which is not as terrifying as it was. Most of it's on the ground now. But you can still see the devastation that we had to do to start the renewal process. Yeah, as we've been chopping things out of the trail, we were just bordering Princeton Park, and you can see the sunlight glinting off of the Metro Parks Department employees' vehicles over there, because that is the head of Louisville Metro Parks in that big mansion, which was once the home place of the Prater family. Prater Road fame.
Gotcha.
Very prominent Louisville family. The story goes that a large portion of this land was a Revolutionary War land grant for his service. For one of them, I can't remember if it was Thomas or William or which one in the Revolutionary War. And they had, you know, race horses, orchards, enslaved persons, so have heard. And it was called Fox Hill. And it was a popular gathering place. And then it burned down sometime. I don't know exactly when, probably early 20th century maybe, but the property at that time was owned by the Collings. And when I was a child, this was called the Collings Estate. We would drive by and we saw horses in there. I grew up in the Highlands, and I thought I was out in the country when we went up Newburgh Road, because there was nothing there yet. That's how old I am. So, yeah, there's a horse farm, kids. So all this rolling parkland was studded with champion race horses.
It's similar to Bashford Manor in a lot of ways.
There you go. Yeah. Exactly. You had these little kind of outposts here and there, these manors, right?
Yeah, and Farmington's just down the road in Bardstown.
They probably drank their home brewed brandy together.
Of course.
Whatever. This is a lovely ridgetop, and I was actually hoping to keep some of the trail up here until I realized what was going to be happening. This is a piece of ash tree, and when I looked around me, I saw ash trees everywhere. And I am not kidding you, Jody. Within my view shed, there are probably at least 20 to 30 good-sized ash trees everywhere I look.
Oh my gosh.
So at that point I thought, I think the trail really doesn't need to be up here.
You don't want to have
to be somewhere else.
Right, you don't want to have to dodge falling trees every time.
Oh my gosh, and even in our last storm, I mean, you can see what's been happening. These are pieces of ash trees. And this is just the beginning. They're still up there. They're not left on the ground. Yeah, so that just happened a couple nights ago, and I'm pretty glad that I had that awakening before I finalized my trail plan. And typically I've never seen it muddy up here. Okay, so here's another big chunk. They tend to slab off like that at an angle. You can see that's a typical remains of a probably either a white or a green ash, and I can actually see the exit holes now. Here they are, the little D-shaped exit holes. So we know that this tree's been infested over time. And that one will be soon to come. Now this one gets to be a hanging hazard, and my friend Conrad will come out here with his chainsaw probably and try to figure out how to fell it. Sometime we're just going to have to walk on that. What you're seeing is basically a bunch of trees that started their life at about the same time, it looks like. Almost as though it was like logged over, but for some reason ash was the only tree that regenerated successfully. Yeah.
Well, I'm seeing some broken brick here.
Oh, you are, and you see the signs. This is another old roadway, and this roadway actually went to an archaeological site that we are right beside. I'm glad you noticed that, because I would have forgotten. This is an old site from the mid-1800s called the Rand site, and we never knew what was here. We thought it was some kind of homestead. So this is a house foundation, and somebody, maybe it was Nature Preserves, somebody didn't want bottle looting, or digging, hence the chain link, just to try to preserve it for future generations or whatever. So, and it was all infested by bush honeysuckle, and now but you have some of your intact stones. Actually, there was a little stone table back there. I think we missed it, that people built, that you can sit at. Anyway, all kinds of weird things in here. So mid-1800s, we didn't know what was here, and then I have a forest friend. I call these people my forest friends. I meet this woman walking in here every so often. Her name's Diane, and she is an amateur genealogist, but a very good one. And she found out for us what had been going on here. She found Courier Journal archives from mid-1800s. I mean, we're talking way back here, for the Round Hill School for boys. What? I don't think it was successful, but there was a Courier Journal ad, probably targeted at well-to-do families who wanted to get their sons out of the unhealthy city vapors or whatever, to send them to this charming hillside and where they could cavort in the creek. And I mean, there was all this flowery language, and it showed how much it cost too, and we were kind of going, that sounds like a lot of money for those days. The guy came from New England. He had been in education, and some people speculated that at that particular time in history, New Englanders maybe weren't real welcome here. I don't know, but
Yankees, yeah.
we don't see any evidence that anything actually did happen here, like what was advertised.
Right.
So there may have been grand plans, but not
any.
Yeah, I mean, he described buildings and all this, and I mean, it's like, oh, this is a figment. There's one site that we know of that actually had any buildings. Yeah, no telling what's underneath all that. The last meander of Beargrass Creek right here. This is part of the original bed of the South Fork in this area. So that's why it's still holding water as it is, because it's the lowest spot around here. And and we're going to be walking along. We'll be able to see it a little bit more. That's another thing I like about this new trail, is you're actually going to be looking down into it and getting a view of it that you don't get from Prather Road, where it's kind of concealed by groves of pawpaw trees. As I was saying, my choices here were deer trails, and I hooked a few different ones up. So I don't quite like this downhill stretch right here, but I'm hoping that I can keep it funneling off to this side. So generally I try to avoid falling down here. Oh, hi there. Good morning. Little boy.
Wow.
I know. I was telling the group this morning that as time goes by, I think we're going to be having some really monster bucks in here, and I saw some last year. Without any hunting, you're not going to have those big guys culled out of the population. So yeah.
Hey, not gonna hurt you. The deer's using the trail for sure.
I think he likes what's been going on here. Now, I have seen that when we cut things like we've been doing here, they often come to see if there's something in it for them. We can hear a little bit of traffic over there, but other than that, we're in the heart of Louisville.
It's impossible to believe, really. We're in the middle of Jefferson County.
Snails are extremely abundant in here, and I think that they are really an important part of the, here I'll get in the sunlight for you. The box turtles love them because I've seen them on box turtles' faces. Okay. I've seen slug and snail slime hanging off of their chops many a time. Down previously. And what's this one? This one is a black cherry. And wow, okay. And lucky for the trail keepers, it didn't go down right across the trail. Wow, that one did make a sound.
Herons, looks like.
I hope you all enjoyed our walk through Beargrass Creek State Nature Preserve. Again, Louisville's hidden gem of an urban forest. I'm standing at the Louisville Nature Center now, which is where the two main trailheads at the front and the back of the building start that go into the preserve. And although I haven't spoken about the Nature Center a lot, I do want to remind people of what a fabulous place it is and how much their sponsorship has helped us to revive the forest and do all the work that we've done, and also that they have lots of great public programs and kids camps and all that stuff. So what we've done today is we've pretty much traversed just about every trail in the forest. We've seen the good and the bad and the ugly, as they say. We've seen it all. We've sampled a few treats along the way, and we've looked at the hope for the future and what happened in the past as well. So check out my blog, oneforestfragment.com. That's all spelled in lowercase letters, and you'll get a lot more great stories and more to come. And thank you to Richard and Jody for giving me this great opportunity.